Did Diego Pavia get a firm grip on the starting job after scrimmage number 1?
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports just stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, after the first scrimmage of fall camp, the defense is ratcheting up the intensity, and they're really just starting to cause some havoc, which is amazing. The offense has many things to clean up, some depth chart questions to answer, but did we get a resolution on the starting quarterback job? Did Diego Pavia indeed get a firm grip on the job? Well, here's the thing. These last couple of practices in the scrimmage, Diego Pavia has proven that he is the better overall quarterback. Okay? I emphasize that word for a reason, quarterback. Okay? Because I think, and I've alluded to this, and this is kind of becoming more clear with each practice, with each, not each scrimmage because this is the first scrimmage, but each 11-on-11 situation period that they put him in, it's becoming more and more clear that Pavia's experience is starting to kind of take over. All right. Now, the reason they have, and this is where it gets crazy, okay? Because yes, to answer the question, yes, I think Diego Pavia did get a firm grip on the quarterback job after scrimmage number 1. I think he has a lot. I think he brings a lot to the table, and I think Nate Johnson brings a lot to the table. And Nate Johnson will have to bring everything to the table now if he wants a chance to beat him out. I think. I just think Pavia's experience is there. I mean, he is running. He knows how to get the team in and out of the huddle. He knows the checks. He knows the operation. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do with that, right? And for this quarterback position, that's what you need with an offense that struggled mightily last year to have an identity. And unfortunately for Nate Johnson, because he's been really good and he's got really good talent. He can do a lot of great things. And any other situation, he would be perfect for what Vandy wants to do. But I think as of right now, and unless there's an injury or unless something drastically changes, it's come down to the experience and getting the operation right. And yes, it wasn't clean at times, and it wasn't clean very often, or actually, I don't know, about half the time on Saturday. There was mistakes, misalignments, unforced errors, forced errors. Both quarterbacks not taking care of the ball as good as they should. But in the end, I think the cleanest moments were with Diego Pavia. I think that the most efficient moments were with Diego Pavia. And that's honestly what this offense needs, right? And yes, the answer is yes. Diego Pavia does have some physical limitations. He can't push the ball down the field as effectively as Nate Johnson. That's his weak spot, is pushing the ball vertically down the field. And you have to have some semblance of that if you're going to be successful in this offense, or if you're going to be successful at Vandy, because you do have to stretch the field, or defenses will close down that space and they'll suffocate you like a boa constrictor. And so they got to prove that they can be able to do that. And not all of that's on Pavia. Not all of that's on the quarterbacks. Some of the errors aren't all on the quarterback. But for the most part, it just seemed to be more efficient. The coaches just seemed to be a little bit more confident when Pavia was in there. The guys in the huddle seemed to be a little bit more confident when Pavia was in there. They just operated better, and that's what it comes down to. And obviously he's going to have to – they haven't named him the starter yet, but they're going to Nate Johnson's going to have to overcome that if he wants a chance to win this. But it's not all bad because Nate Johnson, again, is the more physically gifted quarterback. He's probably the most physically gifted quarterback on the roster. He does a lot of great things in the run game. He's explosive. He's got a pretty big arm. I just don't think situationally he's where he needs to be. I think taking care of the football as far as throwing interceptions, things like that, he's not where he needs to be in order to A, win this job, or B, be successful in a big environment with the keys to the offense. So it just you when you're evaluating, you have to go on not only who's the best talent, like who can push the ball vertically down the field. Like I think all the other stuff outweighs that for now. They'll figure out how to push the ball downfield. But I think they need to figure out the operation. I think they need to figure out who's going to check us in and out of bad plays, who's going to know where to deliver the ball, who's going to understand the nuances of this offense. And that's Diego Pavia right now. And that's where he's earned it. And it sucks for Nate Johnson, honestly. And I think Vandy has it's a good problem to have, because when you have two really viable quarterbacks, if Diego Pavia was not in the picture at all, I would feel decent. I would feel pretty good actually about Nate Johnson. But that's not the case here. And so Nate Johnson honestly should not have anything to be ashamed of. And for people pushing the panic button, like, oh gosh, Nate Johnson wasn't what he thought he was. And maybe he isn't. Maybe people thought he was going to be something different, but the fact remains is he's still very raw in his development as a quarterback. I think there's a lot that he has to learn. There's a lot within the system he has to learn. There's a lot situationally he still has to learn about being a quarterback that Pavia, just with age and playing experience, has over him. That's just kind of where we are right now. And I would be excited if Nate Johnson won the job. I'm equally as excited about Diego Pavia. I think they both bring a lot to the table. So here's my prediction. It's not a very bold prediction because of what has been happening the last few practices, including the scrimmage. But the bold prediction obviously is Diego Pavia as your starter, and Nate Johnson clearly the backup. And I think, early on, I mentioned that Nate Johnson would be kind of like that gadget guy who had a package of plays, and then Blaise Berlotz would be the true backup if they needed to go long-term. I don't think that anymore. I think Nate Johnson has earned, full-scale backup quarterback with additionally having stuff that he can do. He will play. He's not going to be sitting on the bench the whole time. I don't know what capacity yet. I think they're still trying to figure that out, but he will play. Absolutely will play. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. And I think he brings a lot. I think he brings a lot of explosiveness. I think he's somebody that, as they're trying to figure out where Diego Pavia is weak, they can fill in certain situations with Nate Johnson, pushing the ball vertically for one. Red zone, maybe, if they're bogged down and they need a spark in the red zone, Nate Johnson comes in, provides some electricity there. So there's a lot of options, really. But I think it's going to be. I think there's still some time left, although I think it's quickly narrowing. And then in the next week or so, they got to try to figure out, because like they don't want this thing to be equal reps, because at some point Pavia, they're gonna have to figure some things out, and Pavia is gonna have to get the starter reps at some point to get ready for Virginia Tech. And so they need to put a lid on this thing. But I think we're getting towards a resolution. But definitely Diego Pavia has the edge, followed by Nate Johnson, who's the definite backup and going to play. Blaise Berlowitz, I believe, is taking over the quarterback 3 job, the third string guy. He's been pretty impressive, just on the heels of Johnson and Pavia, but he's been impressive nonetheless. And then Muschamp and St. Hilaire, they have bright futures, but they're not really going to. If it gets down to them, it means there's been some injuries. So, but the quarterback room is in great shape. All 6 of them have had some impressive moments throughout the fall, or not the fall, but the fall camp series. But I think ultimately, it's Pavia's job to lose. But regardless of who wins it, regardless of who has the edge, or regardless of whatever, the scrimmage was still way too sloppy for Tim Beck and Jerry Kill and even Clark Lee's liking. There's too many procedural penalties. There's too many miscommunications, misalignments, blown assignments, drops, penalties. I think I said penalties already. Drops, fumbles, bad interceptions, things like that. I think a lot of that has to be cleaned up as well. And some of that may be attributed to they're just trying to figure out who fits where on the depth chart. So we'll try to unravel some of these questions and some of these things and try to figure out exactly where this offense actually stands. But right now it stands that Pavia is going to be leading whatever this thing is. So we'll talk about that next. eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go ahead and switch over to Locked On College Football Podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, and new college football expanded playoffs, plus more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So I mentioned the everydayers, first of all. Thank you so much. Check us out at Locked On Vandy. Be a friend, tell a friend. Spread the wealth. Get them here, right? I'm bringing you my perspective. I'm meeting you kind of halfway here between the experts and the fans. So, man, this is going to be an exciting season, man. It feels like a completely new era in college football, which, it kind of is with the 12-team playoff, but it just feels, even when they went from BCS to the 4-team playoff, it felt slightly different, but not really. Felt like a lot of things were still very much the same. But now with the SEC going to 16 teams and no divisions, 12-team playoff, transfer portal being more of a normal thing now, it just feels like we're in a different world now of college football, which is exciting, I think. So, but nonetheless, Vandy needs to figure out some things offensively. Tim Beck, they have some things to figure out. But unfortunately, yes, it was all very sloppy. And as a coach, I would probably be spiking my play sheet, throwing my visor, launching my hat, whatever. I'd probably be doing the same thing. I'd probably be at peak frustration too. A lot of things happening that are avoidable. But at the flip side, when you're sitting in those meetings, like this morning, probably Sunday morning, they're probably sitting in those meetings going, you know what? We can fix all that stuff. And it's very fixable. It's nothing. I don't think it doesn't strike me right now as something that can't be worked out, something that can't be coached through, power through, whatever. And some of that might just be lack of answers in the depth chart. Some of it might be, hey, this guy doesn't need to be at this place in the depth chart. He needs to go down. Or, hey, this guy down here doesn't need to be here. He needs to go up. He made plays. He did not make plays. Let's switch. It may be as simple as that. It may be as simple as, okay, well, this quarterback was in and we had all these mishaps. This quarterback in, it was a little bit cleaner, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot to be sorted out, and they'll do it. I mean, I think the run game was really good. There was flashes of that. I think, with Cedric Alexander, he was limited by design, but he's on a different level right now. Newberry is solid. Monty Jones is really good. I think they have enough to support three backs. So Chase Gillespie, he's somebody that is kind of a utility guy that does a lot of great things. Johan Cardenas, it's something that, he's kind of down the pipeline, but I think when you look at the running back carries, touches, and the usage, it's going to be really telling. And I've said this all along, the number 2 guy will probably end up being Newberry. But I think a lot of times who will get some run will depend on situations. Like if it's 3rd and 1, Monty Jones might come in to barrel through for a yard. If it's 3rd and 6, Chase Gillespie might come on, kind of like an Austin Eckler type role where he's more of a receiving running back that also can carry the ball, but can do a lot of different things well. Like there's certain things that will play out, whereas they could probably sustain 4 running backs, 2 significantly, and then the other 2 just kind of situationally where, Monty Jones might get more run in one game and Chase Gillespie might get more in another. And it's just kind of inconsistent because of depending on the situation. So that, I think that will answer a lot of questions. As of right now, the identity is firmly entrenched in the run game and firmly dependent on the run game too. So they have to figure that. They have to figure all that stuff out as well. So it's going to be interesting nonetheless. But the offensive line, and I don't think I'm gonna have time to get to receivers here, so I want to talk about the offensive linemen real quick. Those battles are starting to kind of shake out a little bit too. Those things they're trying to get figured out as well. And I think some of the operational stuff just might be the fact that, well, they're still far from determining who their starting 5 is and where those guys will meet up. So that might have something to do with it. Some of the breakdowns and protections might have something to do with that. Some of the defensive line success might have something to do with the offensive line not figuring it out at times. But I think ultimately this group shows promise. When they put it together, they're pretty tough. And they put it together often enough to make you at least walk away and go, that felt pretty good. So, but to say any of these spots are locked down, if I told you any of them were locked down, I'd probably be lying to you. I would probably be lying to you. So, there's a lot of different things happening with this offensive line, and it's good to see. It's really good to see that these guys are battling it out, man. Some of these guys that you didn't think were going to be contributors are also battling it out, and they're making it tough as well. So guys like Mizal Sandoval, and I'm pretty sure I butchered that first name. I apologize, Mr. Sandoval. Gage Pitchford, somebody who we didn't really see in the mix, been injured, but somebody that I think can give some rotation work there as he gets more healthy. Cade McConnell moving inside the center, didn't see that one early on, but he's got to find a home somewhere. But like Kivo Wesley, Grayson Morgan just can't get healthy enough to really factor in right now in the competition. But if he continues to learn, he might be somebody that down the stretch could contribute somewhere. Gunnar Hansen, like who's going to be where? It's just all sorting out right now. And that probably leads to a lot of the issues. And, again, I'm going to chalk it up to that. There's a lot of things we'll chalk it up to. But one thing I'm not going to do that I'll never do is panic. Like, why? Why panic? Why be like, oh, sky's falling? Offense didn't have a great scrimmage. Okay. Oh, gosh. Yeah, not going to do that. But anyway, defense, though, I think you should get excited about defense. Havoc, man. They're creating a lot of havoc. We'll talk about what the havoc they're creating here next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up any bets anytime I'm in the mood, which is awesome. The Olympics are over, though, so I'm going to have to start betting on baseball. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. Yeah, you heard that right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, welcome in. Wrapping up the show here. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. At Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. And this is going to be a fun ride, man. This football season is going to be incredible. I'm really, really excited for it. Because, like I said, it's a new era, and it just feels extra special this year because of that. And I think Vandy has turning over a new leaf has a lot to do with that. The fact that the SEC might get 6 teams in the playoff and make everyone else around the country squirm a little bit because of it, I think that is also kind of fun because there's a lot of people around that are tired of the SEC winning, and the SEC just keeps winning, and they don't know how to handle themselves. And I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of fun being an SEC guy. And so, again, I'm not one of those like SEC. Like I'm going to root hard for all the SEC teams, but it is nice when the SEC does well because you can be like, you said what? Yeah. Anyway. All right. Enough with my tangent. The defense is creating havoc, guys. Like this is like when you read the notes, and the notes, man, these notes are incredible, by the way. Shout out to 247, shout out to Rivals. Man, these notes are incredible. But when you see the defense doing what they're doing, I think it's going to make you feel better about what's happening offensively as they figure it out. I think this gives you a chance to say, okay, well, at least we're getting one area solidified. The offense is still really new, and they're trying to figure out a whole position group over there. All right. And camp superstar Bryson Coleman is out with a broken collarbone, so that sucks. But anyway, defensively, like CJ, like the fact that the DBs didn't have to do a ton means the defensive line was getting after it. Like Corday Sidnor, loved that guy. This guy is incredible, man. Like he is like, if the quarterbacks were live, he probably would have had 2 or 3 sacks today. I mean, he was all over the place, right? Tyson Russell at cornerback, like he's in a battle for a starting position there. And, he covered well, tackled well, played really well out there. Taco Wright again. I mean, they're battling out there, man. Colby Taylor's is really kind of taking over now. What really sucks is Mark Davis is out for the season with a broken foot. So they're going to have to figure out how to play without yet another FCS all-conference defensive player. So that's kind of a blow. But I think these guys are trying to figure it out. I think the defensive line is going to be really good and stepping up. Colby Taylor talks a lot of trash. Jalen Lackey is going to be somebody who tackles well in the open space, going to be somebody that you probably didn't know that was going to be contributing. Marlon Sewell is somebody that also is playing with some confidence. And, one of the things that you see about this defense is pressure. And not just, when you hear the word pressure, you're probably thinking, oh, they're putting pressure on the quarterback, things like that. But no, I mean, they're just pressure. They're just applying a lot of pressure to this offense. And I think a lot of the offense's undoings were at the hands of the defense. The miscommunications probably weren't, but like the turnovers and some of the negative plays, breakdowns and protection, stuff like that. That's the defense putting pressure on you and squeezing you and making things very, very stressful for the offensive line, who is still trying to figure out things. I mean, there's a lot to figure out. So, but the defensive line is going to be really good. Devin Lee, Bradley Mann were really good. Glenn Seabrooks, I think, has a chance. You have your nose guard, Altara, who has been outstanding this entire camp. Demarion Thomas has been pretty good in his own right. I think when you look at the nose guard position, the nose tackle position, this is probably the only time you've ever heard about how the nose tackle is doing, which got to give those guys a love, man. Those guys are awesome. Those guys are huge with high motors. Like, they're a different breed, man. And Yolanan Altara, no clue if I pronounced that right, but he's really, really causing some havoc in there and on the defensive line. I mean, he's just somebody that's just all over the place, man, and they just they don't really have many answers for him, which is good, because eventually the defenses they play or the offenses they play, it'll be okay for us to root against those offenses very, very soon. So Zaylon Wood and Corday Sidnor have been really good. And those two guys coming in from the transfer portal have been really, really good. I think no matter how you do that, I think there's going to be some situations where you get Sidnor and Zaylon Wood on the field at the same time. When you go like a faster kind of defensive line package there, Miles Caper as your razor, who's your outside linebacker / defensive end type. He's been pretty good. Aeneas DeCosmo and Darren Agu have been really good. That position might change situationally, like Corday Sidnor might be in some situations where if it's short yardage or like low red zone type scenarios, he might, they might throw some bigger bodies in there. But I mean, overall, this defensive line, man, they are really, really lighting it up a little bit, and they're helping put pressure on the offense so that the DBs, they don't have to do much, but they get opportunities to do things because the defensive line is creating so much turmoil back there in the defensive back or in the offensive backfield that, it just seems like there's gifts coming their way all the time. And those guys are capitalizing on it. And they're talking a lot of trash, which is incredible, because last year at 2-10, they didn't have a whole lot of trash to talk. they didn't have a ton to say, and they're finally getting a chance to say it. And I am 1,000% behind all that. So getting off the field on third down is obviously the biggest goal for this defense. And I think they're going to do a much, much better job at that. I think they're going to have much better pressure on the quarterback as a result, or that's going to be a result for us having a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So, but this scrimmage was positive in a lot of ways, even with the negative plays, even with the issues and the frustrations that Tim Beck and Jerry Kill were feeling on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's all positive because it is a learning experience. All the times the defense got burned, learning experience, right? These things, they watch film. This game didn't count in the standings. They're still 0-0 right now, and they're finding answers, man. And that's the name of the game. Sometimes you have to break these things to find answers. So to take a lot of stock in where this team is after this scrimmage, yeah, you can. It's okay to be a little worried about the offense. But I think it's also we're finding answers on the offensive line. We're trying to figure out who's going to run what. And we're still trying to figure out what receivers are going to be the combo. So there's a lot to figure out still personnel wise, and how they fit in scheme wise. And that may be affecting things. You never know. This quarterback battle might be affecting things. So just my biggest piece of advice, and I'll leave you with this: stay patient. Obviously, keep reading the reports, keep listening to the show, but stay patient. They will figure it out. The things they did well, they did extremely well, and it should make you feel good. Things they didn't do so well are fixable. There's no things that there's no major red flags. There's some things that I don't like, but there's not any major red flags where I'm like, this team's cooked. So that being said, that's all I got for you today. Behave yourselves, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Anchor down.